From the start, we were inseparable. But she never liked my family and would get angry when I tried to explain their importance to me. We had a daughter, and I devoted all my attention to her. Then, after about a year and a half, my wife lost all feelings for me but hid it. I had no idea. I just noticed her pulling away. I tried to talk to her, but she avoided every conversation. Then she joined a gym, started coming home late, and when I confronted her, the truth came out. I used to be emotionally strong, but since this happened, I've broken down. I've lost the barriers I once had and am feeling emotions in ways I never have before. She acknowledges that she's seen a change in me and says she would want to be with me again, that I've proven myself to her. But at the same time, she says she's in love with this other man and wants to marry him after just 3 weeks. She insists she needs to keep seeing him to be sure she won't regret leaving him. He's 47. My wife and I are 30. He has 2 sons, one of whom is 15. He connected with my wife over shared marriage struggles, but now his own wife suddenly wants him back. I believe he's just taking advantage of vulnerable women, probably not for the first time. I found his wife's contact information, but if I reach out to either of them, I'll lose any chance of reconciling with my wife. I work remotely so I can care for our child, yet she complains that I don't make enough money. She doesn't see how much we're saving on childcare. I'm the primary caregiver, and our daughter is most attached to me. I don't want to go nuclear, but I feel like she's just keeping me around until they can run away together and live out some fantasy. I remind her that we have a child and need to consider the emotional and logistical impact of all this, especially since our daughter would end up back with me, and I'd come out of this stronger than ever. It's taking too long to get a therapist involved. And the more her family pushes back, the more stubborn she becomes. I'm doing everything I can to win her over, but at this point, I just feel like a housemaid while she goes to work and talks to him all day. The days blurred into each other. Every morning, I woke up to the same reality. My wife was still seeing him. She still talked to him constantly, still came home late from the gym, and still treated me like an afterthought. And yet, she kept insisting she wasn't leaving, at least not yet. She wanted time to figure things out, to make sure she wasn't making a mistake by choosing me or him. I was exhausted. I was still working, still taking care of our daughter, still pretending everything was fine. But inside, I was unraveling. At first, I told myself this was just a phase, a crisis. If I could just hold on long enough, she'd wake up. She'd see what she was doing. She'd come back to me, and we'd rebuild. But the longer this dragged on, the more I started to wonder, was I really saving my marriage? Or was I just delaying the inevitable? She still came home every night, but she wasn't really here. She was with him. Even if her body was in our house, her mind and emotions were elsewhere. When we sat at the dinner table, she scrolled through her phone, texting him. When I tried to talk, she barely responded. And at night, when I lay awake in bed, she was whispering into her phone, thinking I was asleep. I started checking our phone records. The calls lasted hours. She still slept in our bed, but only when she wanted to. The rest of the time, I found myself alone in the spare bedroom, staring at the ceiling, wondering how my life had unraveled like this. One night, after she fell asleep, I sat on the couch and just let everything sink in. I had done everything I could. I had begged. I had compromised. I had made excuses for her. I had waited. And what had I gotten in return? Nothing. The painful truth hit me like a punch to the gut. She wasn't hesitating because she was torn between us. She was hesitating because she wanted both of us. She wanted the stability of home, the safety of knowing I was there, picking up the pieces, taking care of our daughter, keeping the house running. But she also wanted the thrill of something new, the excitement of sneaking around, the rush of forbidden love. She wasn't planning to stay with me. She was just waiting for the right moment to leave. I realized then that I was nothing more than a backup plan. The next morning, I decided I wasn't going to wait for her to make a choice. I was going to make it for her. While our daughter was taking a nap, I sat her down in the kitchen. She sighed like she was already bored with the conversation. "What now?" she asked, crossing her arms. I studied her. This woman, my wife, the mother of my child, looked at me like I was an inconvenience. Not a partner. Not the father of her child. Just someone getting in the way. Something in me hardened. "I know you've already made your choice," I said, my voice steady. "You just don't have the guts to say it." She blinked, momentarily caught off guard. "That's not true." "Yes, it is," I said. "You're not staying because you love me. You're staying because you don't want to lose what I give you. The house. The childcare. The stability." She frowned, but she didn't deny it. "I'm done waiting," I continued. I'm done being your backup plan. If you want him, go. But don't expect to come crawling back when it all falls apart. Her jaw tightened. It's not that simple. It is, I said. You've been treating me like an idiot. Like I wouldn't notice you texting him while I'm sitting right next to you. Like I wouldn't hear you sneaking off to call him. Like I wouldn't figure out what you're doing. She stayed silent. You think you're going to have some fairy tale ending with this guy? I shook my head. He's 47. He's married. He's done this before. You're just another woman he's using to escape his own problems. And when he's done with you, you're going to realize what you threw away. Her face hardened. You don't know that. I let out a bitter laugh. Yeah? Then why hasn't he left his wife for you? That shut her up. That was the beginning of the end. She didn't leave right away. At first, she got angry, tried to turn it around on me. She accused me of spying on her. She said I was controlling. But I didn't back down. I stood my ground. And slowly, she realized I wasn't bluffing. I stopped chasing her. I stopped waiting for her to choose me. Instead, I started making plans. I spoke to a lawyer. I documented everything. I stopped letting her manipulate me into thinking I was the one who needed to fix things. She didn't like that. She tried to win back control in small ways, being extra nice one day, picking fights the next. But I didn't react. I had finally realized that the person I fell in love with was gone. And she wasn't coming back. A few weeks later, she packed a bag. She told me she needed space to figure things out. I told her I wouldn't be waiting when she did. She left. She moved in with a friend, still texting him nonstop, still chasing that fantasy. And for the first time in months, I felt something close to relief. I wasn't her prisoner anymore. I had spent so long trying to save something that wasn't worth saving. I had bent over backward, swallowed my pride, given her every opportunity to do the right thing. And she still chose him. I wasn't going to let her break me anymore. The first few weeks were hard. Our daughter asked for her constantly, and I had to find the right words to explain why mommy wasn't home. But I started rebuilding. I focused on being the best father I could be. I focused on my work, my health, my future. And little by little, I started to remember who I was before all of this. I never contacted the other man's wife. I didn't need to. People like him always self-destruct eventually. And my wife? She got what she wanted. At least, for a little while. It took less than 3 months for her fantasy to collapse. She called me late one night, sobbing, saying she had made a mistake. That he wasn't who she thought he was. That she missed our family. I listened. Then I told her that some mistakes can't be undone. She had already made her choice. And so had I.